Oh, look at this. Look at what we have here. Oh, look at this sexy piece of ginger. Oh, who needs penthouse? Ha! The bitter birds are here, baby. We're here to talk about the Art of the Deals SI article that was just recently published in, well, the latest installment of the Sports Illustrated magazine. Jeremy Burton, Mike Owens are both here. I'm Adrian Fedque. Overall thoughts on just Wentz being on SI. It's awesome. I mean, I'm going to frame it, and I have already used too many tissues.
Well, it's great to see. I mean, it's been forever since we had a franchise quarterback here in Philadelphia. So Wentz, it's a guy that we can really all get behind here. Everyone's on his side right now. And, I mean, he's got a really bright future, it seems like. So, I mean, it's great to see, Wentz on the cover of SI, the regional cover here. And, by the way, he definitely looks, a lot better in that Eagles green than he would looking in a Rams uniform.
I'll tell you, that'll be a nice little keepsake if we ever get our first ever Lombardi trophy with Carson Wentz under center. Obviously, he looks great in green, but we're lucky. I think he's not on a Madden cover yet because that usually comes instant injury, at least as a Sports Illustrated cover as opposed to Madden. Now, everyone knows the Madden jinx, so I think we're safe for a little while until he goes to multiple Pro Bowls, and then maybe he'll be on Madden. But it's exciting. The article, I wish it had a little more about him. It kind of was the overall draft process. Talked more about Goff and Lynch and then Wentz, but still nice to see for sure.
Yeah, and just to give you guys a little peek inside, this is kind of what it looks like. The Art of the Deals. This wasn't a draft. It was an arms race, according to Austin Murphy here, the author. The strangest, most memorable first round ever. Would you say that this was the strangest first round of all time?
I mean, I don't know about all time, but it was definitely strange. I mean, I would say that, going into the draft, everyone pretty much thought that they knew who was going to go in the top 7, top 8. But really, I would say, I mean, with the Tunzel video coming out right before the draft, that kind of really threw a curveball into the whole situation, and that's why it really became kind of a bizarre draft. But if the Tunzel video didn't come out, then I don't think you would have seen those top 10 picks be as crazy as they were.
Yeah, I don't know if strange is the word. I can't think of it's the strangest ever off the top of my head. With there's always story. There seems like there's always a storyline in the draft. I remember back with Aaron Rodgers, he's sitting there in the green room just the whole time dropping all the way to 24, but it worked out for the Packers. So it's all about the storylines. I think in that way it was a different draft because you had the Miles Jack thing just days before the draft. All the medical reports coming out with his knee and him even saying himself that it's an issue. The Tunsil video, obviously he was in mocks going number 1 overall before the Rams traded up to 1. So and then you had the storyline of the quarterbacks obviously going 1 and 2. So, I mean, other than that, I mean, yeah, there's storylines. It was interesting. Definitely a few trades, which was always exciting and spices it up a little bit.
I would say it strangest. I would say it is. As long as you're using the word strangest and not memorable. I wouldn't say it's the most memorable draft of all time, but strangest in terms of the Eagles made a trade up to number 2 with 8 days left until the draft. That in itself is just unprecedented and strange. And then you had the Tunsil video and all these storylines with Miles Jack and just insanity. I thought all the way around because you look at what this quarterback class was, and everybody was like, well, it's not a great quarterback class. It's just it wasn't looking like it was going to be a good quarterback class. And then at the end of the day, who was taking number 1 and number 2? They were both quarterbacks anyway. For the 7th time in NFL history, number 1 and number 2, they were both quarterbacks. And let's talk about the art of the deals and why these deals were able to be made and why the Eagles traded up with 8 days to go in the draft. Let's talk about that right now. Let's go around the table. Why was this draft different than all the other ones? Why were teams willing to move down?
Yeah, well, this was a situation where you had the Titans sitting at number 1. They had just picked their franchise quarterback the year before, so they really, didn't need, to be in that top spot. So they had the luxury to pile up some draft picks and, make that trade to get more draft picks and, to move down in the draft. And then you have the situation where the Browns, where, well, they needed a quarterback, a few months ago, but then all of a sudden they went out and they signed RG3. And then after they signed RG3, at the time, we kind of all thought that they would still go with the quarterback there. But then, rumors started to swirl that they weren't interested in staying in that spot and that they wanted to have RG3 as their starter. So, they swapped out of the number 2 spot and gave it to us. So really, this year, you only had really 2 lead quarterbacks in the draft class. So, everyone needs a quarterback these days, and teams will do anything to go up and get a franchise quarterback. So I think, those 2 factors combined is why, the Titans and the Browns decided to trade out of those spots.
And it's so rare to see the number 1 and number 2 overall pick get dealt. I don't think it's ever happened since the NFL merger in the 70s. Reason why it happened, as Mike alluded to, the Titans had their franchise quarterback. First-year GM, it was a smart move on his part in Tennessee to get such a haul from the Rams, and the Rams obviously were desperate to get a quarterback. So that was an obvious move. Now the Browns, it's interesting because I know Hugh Jackson really liked Jared Goff, and I think he had an idea that the Rams were definitely taking him. And what's scary is that he saw such a drop-off between Goff and Wentz, and this is Hugh Jackson being a quarterback guy himself, that he felt that he could get a haul that the Eagles gave him, and it would be more valuable for their team to trade back. And that's the one thing that worries me a little bit, because Hugh Jackson is, he's a very great NFL guy, especially with quarterbacks. So he thought he could maybe rejuvenate RG3 a little bit. They have him and Josh McCown. So the Browns will probably be picking high again next year, and they'll have our first-round pick. So I think it was they thought it was the best move for their franchise. We'll see how it works out. We obviously hope it Wentz pans out for us. So it was a unique situation where the top 2 teams saw the value that benefits their franchise to trade out of those spots. So it was definitely a strange draft where we saw the top 2 picks get dealt.
Yeah, it was a unique type of draft in terms of seeing these teams trade up, because not only are you seeing teams trade up, you're seeing the Rams trade from number 15 to number 1. And you had the Eagles do the double trade of 13-8 and then 8 to number 2. So, but what you're seeing out of this class is this. So obviously teams in the top 3, you normally need a quarterback if you're in the top 3, but that didn't really happen this year. Cleveland was really the only team that needed a quarterback, and, well, it decided, obviously, that stacking up the picks was better off for that franchise. As for the Eagles and Rams, the trade makes sense for them. These are franchises that aren't good enough to contend without a true franchise quarterback, but they're also not bad enough to pick in the top 5 every year and improve your chances of getting that guy. So this was that class to go up and make that sort of move. And it was a class that also didn't feature a lot of really, really, really elite kind of players. If you talk to a bunch of draft experts, each one will give you their a different top player, basically. Some think it's Laramie Tunsil, some think it's Jalen Ramsey, some think it's Goff, some think it's Wentz, some even think it's Ezekiel Elliott. So you have like 10 guys that there's not that much separation between them. So trading back in a draft like this, you have the luxury of doing it. So you jumpstart your rebuild if you're the Browns and if you're the Titans and if you're the Eagles and Rams. This is that one draft where you have that opportunity to trade up and get that quarterback, because if you don't get that quarterback, you're treading in mediocrity.
Yeah, I mean, you're exactly right. So it just made sense for both the Eagles and the Rams to make the selections. For the Rams, they decided to go with Goff because, Goff, the California guy, he's a more pro-ready quarterback, so they decided to go with him. There's experts out there that they said that they thought that the Rams should have went with Wentz because they really like Wentz. I mean, Wentz is a guy that the Eagles kind of had the luxury of getting because he's a little bit of a project, but they have the luxury to do that with Bradford and Chase Daniel. So Wentz is a guy that they're going to hopefully, sit for a year or half a year and before they put him in there. But Wentz is a guy that I would say that has a higher ceiling.
Yeah, I mean, you guys both hit the points. I mean, it totally makes Wentz, right?
Oh,
yeah. Goff is, the Rams are I think they're pretty ready to win. They have a stout defense. Goff is a California kid. They think he's ready to play right away, and obviously they won't have a real starter. I mean, he'll easily beat out Foles and Case Keenum and whoever else is on the roster, and the Eagles had the luxury of starting Sam Bradford, who finally decided to show up yesterday, and his menstrual cycle ran its course. So yeah, I mean, that's just the way it worked out, and I think it's best for both franchises.
All right, so in the article about what we just kind of referenced, it all talked about. Murphy gives a late 1980s movie reference of a movie, well, I never even heard of. It's called Raising Arizona. But here's the part from the story. So early in Raising Arizona, the irascible owner of a furniture store berates an employee, 800 leaf tables and no chairs. You can't sell leaf tables and no chairs. Chairs, you got a dinette set. No chairs, you got dick. The Rams have been one chair short. It didn't say dick, but I said it. The Rams have been one chair short of a dinette since Week 7 of the 2013 season when Bradford suffered the first of 2 ACL tears. Coach Jeff Fisher has sent out a series of well-meaning field generals, Kellen Clemens, Sean Hill, Austin Davis, Nick Foles, Case Keenum, whose enthusiasm exceeded their talent. As GM Les Snead put it last week with bracing Condor, we have been a haven for backups. Bradford, for his part, has played well at times for the Eagles, who traded him before last season, just not well enough to keep Philly from spending $21 million to sign free agent Chase Daniel, and then vaulting 6 places in the draft from 8 to 2 for the right to pick Wentz. Bold as that move was, the Eagles trade up paled in comparison with the Rams' Beeman-esque leap from 15 to number 1. Thus, will this draft be remembered for the indelible image of a prospect in a gas mask and for the huge risks taken by a pair of teams determined to find just the right chair? So to summarize it, without a quarterback, you got dick.
Yep, that's exactly right, and that's the NFL these days.
Yeah, he should have just said that one sentence, and that's all he needed. But it was a cute little metaphor there he threw in. And I'm a movie buff. I've never heard of that friggin' movie before. Yeah. So, but no, it's true. I mean, the Eagles. There's a reason why the Eagles were so good from the year 2000 to 2008, always in it. We had our franchise quarterback, and we've kind of been couple 10-win seasons here and there since 2008, but not a playoff win. I don't remember one. Nope. 2-1 and done is all I remember. So, yeah, I think finally got our franchise guy, and hopefully it comes to fruition, and Wentz leads the pack. I love them. I love him in that number 11 Eagles green.
All right, let's get into the one part where they do kind of talk about Wentz a little bit. So I will read off the excerpt here. All right, so If Goff is the natural, as Tollner refers to him, Tollner is the agent for both Goff and Wentz. So if Goff is the natural, as Tollner refers to him, Wentz is the prototype. At 6'5", 237, he's got 20 pounds on Goff, is strong at arm and more foot speed. The pride of Bismarck, North Dakota, has spent more time than Goff under center. Running coach Chris Kleeman's pro-style offense at North Dakota State. Wentz's game tape overflows with wow throws. Sure, scouts would have liked to see him completing those passes against, say, Alabama rather than Weber State and Western Illinois, but at a certain point, a throw speaks for itself. Wentz secured legendary status in North Dakota in January when he led the Bison to their 5th straight FCS championship, 11 weeks after having surgery on his broken right wrist. He could have bailed on the team to be fully healed in time for the NFL Combine. Instead, his loyalty and grit sparked a dramatic rise in his stock, which continued to soar at the Senior Bowl, says Howie Roseman, the Executive Vice President of Football Operations. I was struck by the presence he had, the leadership he showed in a setting with all sorts of guys from bigger schools. So, this kind of excerpt right here that I just read off, I mean, this is kind of stuff we've been talking about for weeks with Wentz, but, I mean, now it's on the national landscape.
Yeah, well, funny thing about Wentz is he's a guy that he's played multiple sports, throughout his life. And in high school, he was a guy that he was actually really into baseball. And then his junior year, I believe it was, in high school, he suffered an injury, a shoulder injury, I believe it was while playing baseball, or he was doing something. He got a shoulder injury, and he used to be a really scrawny guy back in high school. And then all of a sudden, he decided to start eating a lot of that bison meat, and he really bulked up. I mean, he put on 40, 50 pounds, and all of a sudden, he was a beast. I mean, he was always a guy that had that athletic ability. Everybody saw it, in his early days. But then when he put on all that weight, then the football program started to notice it. He went out and, he played football his senior year there in high school. And, he just wowed everyone. He had an outstanding season. And then that's when he went on to, North Dakota State, and he had the career there. But with Wentz, what the Eagles are really like is, when you talk about the leadership ability, the other thing that they like a lot is his ability to, change a play at the line of scrimmage. That's something that he did throughout really his whole college career at North Dakota State. And, that's something that obviously he would do here under Doug Peterson in a West Coast type of offense. And also with Peterson being a first-time head coach, it would really help Peterson out a lot if Wentz was able to come in and just be able to, make audibles at the line of scrimmage right away. Everything they say about Wentz is he's a really smart guy. I mean, the guy hasn't gone below an A throughout his entire life, which is amazing. So the guy is very bright, and the Eagles believe that he's a guy that could really lead the pack there.
And when you think about the prototypical quarterback, you look at Wentz's measurables, it's him, 6'5", 240, big hands, can make all the throws. But the intangible stuff, and also he's a runner. He's rushed for about 500 yards in a couple seasons. But he's got that leadership ability, like Mike alluded to. And what's huge is he's played in a similar kind of offense that Doug Peterson's going to run, base West Coast. He's been under center. He's taken snaps under center a lot more than Goff, and majority of college quarterbacks for that matter. A lot of college quarterbacks are in the shotgun nowadays, doing the spread offense thing. But, I think Wentz, the ability to read defenses, whether it doesn't matter the level of competition that the defense you're playing against, like the formations, all that, just the ability to read. It could be me out there and you, but the tendencies of what the defense is going to do will translate, and his ability to, I think he'll learn quick, a lot quicker than people think, and maybe we'll see him sooner than maybe we'll see him this year at some point. Maybe he won't sit the whole year. Everyone thinks rest him the whole year, bubble wrap him, but I think he's gonna be. I think he's gonna surprise some people.
Bubble. Next show. Title going to be called Bubble Boy for Mr. Wentz. I'll say this about it. All right, so about the tape, because you guys kind of talked about other stuff. I'll talk about the tape because I can see why some people would be a little concerned because when you watch the tape, yes, he's playing Weber State. Yes, he's playing Western Illinois. Yes, the windows are a little bit bigger than, say, the SEC or whatever. But sometimes, some of these throws, the windows are tight. They're tight, just like a nice little virgin. They're tight, and you gotta if you guys really want to check out an NFL throw, Northern Iowa, less than 30 seconds to play, back left corner in the end zone. Wentz throws up lofts up this beautiful ball. Beautiful touch on this thing. Drops it perfectly into the bucket. Back left corner of the end zone. North Dakota State wins this football game. So, yes, the windows are very, very much larger. And yes, I can see why people can be concerned about that. But I've also seen them shrink, and I've seen Wentz with the same exact pinpoint accuracy. So I'm not worried about the tape and the large windows.
Yeah, I mean, one more quick thing on Wentz here is that you have to note that his senior year in college, he broke his wrist early on in the season, and so I mean, North Dakota State, I forget the number of games that they had to win, but they pretty much had to go on a pretty decent run if they wanted to make it into the playoffs again. So Wentz, well, I guess he was kind of joking around, but he was in the quarterback room, and he's there with the backup quarterback, which became the starter because Wentz was injured. And, Wentz was just joking and said, this is my whole college career on the line here because Wentz was determined to come back. Now, Wentz could have easily just decided to sit out the rest of the season and heal his wrist injury and get ready for the NFL draft. But, Wentz decided that once North Dakota State made it to the championship game that he wanted to play, and he came back and he put on a hell of a performance in the championship game. So that's where you look at Wentz, and I think that that's where he's got the toughness factor. I think over a guy like Goff. I think Goff is more of a pretty boy. He's more of a California type of guy. So I think Wentz, he kind of brings that Philly toughness here.
Yeah, Mike, you brought up a great situation when Wentz was grooming his backup. That's great. Now, these are things you don't see on paper. The team player, the leadership, and like you said, the blue collar mentality he grew up with. I mean, he's gonna fit in Philly like a glove. So, we're just counting down the days for Sam to get out of here, I guess.
You know what? I find it to be pretty crazy, that we're all behind Wentz, and I'm behind Wentz. We're all behind Wentz. But, to think that NFL executives, they were pretty much split in half about Wentz and Goff. And obviously, Cleveland didn't want Wentz. They preferred Goff. You had the Rams. They preferred Goff. So what is it about Jared Goff? Why did he go number one? Why did he go number one and not number two? I mean, obviously, the situation there with the Rams, I get that, but here's the question I'll have for you guys: what do you guys project? What is Jared Goff going to be? What is he going to be? Is he going to be any good?
Yeah, I think with Goff, what you get is I think you get a safe pick. With Goff, how I see it playing out is I think that no matter what, he'll probably be a top 15 quarterback in this league. I kind of see, Goff playing out that maybe have a little bit of a career like Bradford. He's going to be that, average to, he'll probably be better than Bradford, well, average to good quarterback. But you're going to have a lot of components around Goff to be able to win a Super Bowl. And I think with Wentz, Wentz's ceiling is really high, but his floor is lower than Goff's, and I think that's where the gamble came in when you decide to go and take a guy like Wentz. But I think with Wentz, if he lives up to the expectations, his ceiling is so high, and I think that if you're able to put a really good defense around him, that he could, lead you to the promised land.
Yeah, Mike, you pretty much nailed it. Like kind of what I was going to say. I have Goff as like maybe a middle of the pack, average to decent quarterback. Maybe as high as the top 12 to 15 range, around middle of the pack. I think with his size, I think he could get killed if you don't protect him. We'll see how the Rams' offensive line holds up, but they have a good defense. He's a local kid. I mean, it was the safe kind of obvious pick for L.A. They're moving their franchise to L.A. the Rams, and that's why I think they went with him over Wentz. Whereas we all back Wentz. I mean, I like a bigger quarterback and the intangibles that Wentz has, but I'm not saying Goff's going to have a bad career, but I think Wentz has more of the X factor there.
Yeah, in the article they kind of they say that Goff has these like lightning quick feet, but I think Wentz has better feet than Goff does. The thing that Goff does have, he has that really really quick release. He's really built from the feet up, which is kind of what you want for a quarterback. I'm seeing him as like a Jay Cutler type. They keep talking about how he's like California cool and all this, but whenever I've seen him play really, really good competition, Jared Goff comes up short. He threw 5 interceptions against Utah. He threw like 3 against USC. This guy that they say is this cool as a cucumber, I don't see it. So I don't know. I think he's going to be the bust out of the two. I'm not a big Goff guy. I think if there's one quarterback in this class, it's Carson Wentz, and that's it. So other than that, I will say that Paxton Lynch he is in a good situation because it's going to take him a couple years to really get ready. And on Denver, you can sit for a year. You have that defense, so you don't really need the play calling. Doesn't it can be very conservative for him. But Wentz is the guy. I think Wentz is the guy. So and moving on, just talking about Wentz for this year and how many games he might start because Sam Bradford, he decided to wipe away all that sand from his vagina. So he is back. And, well, let's ask the question. How many games will Bradford / Daniel / Carson Wentz start this year?
Yeah, so I kind of see it playing out with Bradford starting, maybe I'm going to say 8 games or something. I think that there's definitely a possibility that Bradford could get hurt sometime in that range, and I think it's either going to be an injury or just really will eventually get Bradford on the bench. And then I think, for a little bit, they'll go about like 2 or 3 games with Chase Daniel as a starter just because Peterson will have to do the Chase Daniel experiment because it's his guy, and Daniel is technically the number 2 quarterback. But then at that point, the Eagles, they'll be out of the division race, and I think they'll plug Wentz in there, and Wentz will start, the rest of the game. So, you're looking at Wentz probably maybe starting 4 or 5 games somewhere around there.
Well, let me just say that Sam Bradford reporting to camp is the best thing for him, and it's also the best thing for the Eagles. I don't think he's going to play a full season, but if Bradford plays 16 games, that means he's playing well, and our defense, I think, will play well. And if he plays a full season, this is his first healthy offseason in 3 years. If Bradford can continue to play like the last 7 games he did last year, I think we're in the running for the division. That's just me. But if I had to do a prediction, I give Bradford. He'll okay. Let's say he gets hurt. Give him 10 games and then go 3-3. I'll give for Daniel and Wentz. But it all depends. Everything depends on Sam Bradford. That's just a fact. Whether he gets hurt, whether he sucks, and you hear the fans cheering out Carson's name, and so we'll see how it plays out. But it all comes down to Bradford and how he performs straight up.
I think Sam Bradford is done. He is done. And what I mean by that is I don't think he is secure enough. I don't think he has the self-esteem to handle himself now that he has put himself in this position of wanting to be traded. The Eagles fans are coming for the throat, okay? They despise Sam Bradford right now. They want Carson Wentz. That's the guy that they want. So I don't think Sam Bradford, I don't think he has it mentally to be able to handle this pressure. So I think he's really going to struggle. I don't think he's going to play well. So I don't think the Eagles are going to play well. I think Sam's going to struggle. I think we're going to see Carson Wentz in the second half of the season. That's what I'm thinking. I think Wentz is a lot more pro-ready than people think because, something that you won't see a lot with college quarterbacks. You don't see a lot of college quarterbacks making the calls at the line of scrimmage. It's a different game. But with Wentz, you got all that. He makes the line calls. He takes snaps from under center. He is a little bit more pro-ready than people think. So I'm thinking last 8 games, Carson Wentz is going to play because the Eagles are going to be like 2-6 because they're going to be bad and terrible. And that's what's going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, that could very well happen. Like you said, the biggest thing for Bradford and this whole situation is, it's not going to be facing his teammates because his teammates, they understand that this is a business. I mean, these guys are always trying to get more money. Look at Fletcher Cox. He's not even showing up right now because he wants an extension. So these guys are all in it for the money, and they feel each other for the business side of the game. But the fans here in Philadelphia, they're never going to let Bradford live this moment down where he, held out for a trade. So Bradford is going to hear it every single home game. Every time he makes a mistake, the fans are going to give it to him. So we'll see if Bradford can hold up mentally. And, the way he's really handled the past month, I don't think that he's going to, handle it too well.
2-6, Adrian. Ouch. And that's the easy half of our schedule. It gets tough in I think weeks like 8 through 12 where we have that a tough stretch.
We are not a good team.
Well, like I said, you're right. I say it's all dependent on Bradford, and it's going to come down to what you said. Does he have that mental ability to deal with, Philadelphia and how much the fans hate him right now, and can he play with that chip on his shoulder and use it as a driving point to have a good season? And because to continue his career, he has to have a good year for if he wants to continue making over $100 million like he has already. If he wants to get over that $100 million threshold since his rookie deal, he's going to need a long-term deal with another team, and he's kind of auditioning for another team this year, and he knows that. It all comes down to whether or not he can, show himself, play with that chip on his shoulder, and be the best that he can be. He has to have the best year of his career. If he doesn't and he stinks, then we will see Wentz very early, like you said, and the Eagles will not have a good record, but it'll be good experience for Carson, and hopefully, I'd like to see him win a couple games and showcase, give us a little tease, a little over the jeans cock rub for the 2017 season to get us excited for that.
I don't need to see him on the field for a cock. That's all I got to say. But, I have always questioned Sam Bradford's mental state as a quarterback. It's something I've always kind of asked myself, like, does he have what it takes? Because I don't know about you guys. I am a very, very I take the mental side of the game very, very seriously, and I think it's a huge deal. I really think it is. You have to have that mental edge to you to be successful in any sport you're playing in. But for Bradford, for me, it was, all right, you played in national championships for Oklahoma. You got blown the fuck out. Your rookie year, you had a chance to win a division title, and you lose to Seattle. Last year, you had a chance to possibly win the NFC East, and you came up small against Washington. Kirk Cousins tossed 4 touchdown passes. Sam Bradford is missing wide open receivers like Zach Ertz down the sideline. So I've never seen Bradford have that sort of big game that tells me that he's secure enough with himself. And all these trade rumors, all of this, to me, from Sam Bradford's perspective, that to me is an admission. It is an admission that he doesn't believe he's good enough to be an NFL-type starter quarterback in this league. He says he wants to be the man, but he doesn't believe he's the man. Because if he really thought he was the man, he would have gone to training camp. He would have gone to battle with Carson Wentz. He would have killed it this year. The Eagles would have gone 12-4, and he could have went and been the man elsewhere. Instead, he pouted, he bitched, he whined. Ew! Nobody wants you anymore, Sam. That's my rant for today.
Yeah, I mean, with Bradford, what happened there was he totally overestimated his value. It's way out of proportion, and he got himself into a lot of trouble. And really, the only team that I guess he thought that he had a good shot at going to was the Broncos. He thought that he was going to be traded to the Broncos. His agent thought that he was going to be traded to the Broncos on draft day, and it didn't happen. And when the Broncos, traded up to get Paxton Lynch, Bradford and his agent are sitting there watching the draft, just shaking their head and cursing because they know that they're absolutely screwed. And Bradford backed himself into a corner. I mean, he only has himself to blame for this whole situation. He put way too much faith in his agent. His agent really screwed up the whole situation for him. And but the one thing that I really didn't like with this whole Bradford thing is he comes back and he comes out with a statement which his agent wrote, which was probably one of the weakest statements that I've ever read in my life. And first, the statement said nothing. He showed no passion or anything for being the starting quarterback of a football team. He pretty much just came back to camp, and that was it. He didn't even address the media or talk to the fans and explain what happened. I mean, at least come back and show some type of excitement that you want to be the quarterback, and or just be completely honest and just say that you wanted to get traded. But now he just keeps digging himself a deeper hole with the fans, and I mean, at this point, you can't get out of it.
Yeah, well, it's the optimistic Eagles fan in me trying to think that Sam will play with a chip on his shoulder, and play well. Realistically, is that going to happen? Probably not. It's probably going to go along the lines of what you guys are saying.
It is mental. It doesn't have it. I just
he just doesn't have it. You very well might be right. We will find out this year. But he definitely was a little butthurt when the Jets and Denver got quarterbacks. He definitely overvalued himself. There was nowhere for him to go. He has no leverage, and he's stuck here. So he has to come up, and he has to come up big, or else his career could never come into fruition. He might never win a playoff game ever if he doesn't kill it this year. So it's all on him. I think it's a disgrace what he did and shied away from competition. You don't want to see that in a leader or your quarterback. Obviously, he has to showcase himself well this year, because right now, even in the eyes of obviously the fans and all around the NFL, they don't want to see a quarterback like that. You got a guy like Brian Mitchell coming out and saying he came from nothing. You know, he always had to compete. Always had to compete. He talked about the Sam Bradford situation, and he became one of the better returners in the NFL for years. And I love Brian Mitchell. He's a class act. But you don't want to see your quarterback whine like Bradford. And obviously he had to say all the professional things, and obviously Condon or lawyer wrote out some sort of statement, saying all the right things. But yeah, there's no passion there. I mean, he's just, Bradford's just blah, really, to put it up in a word. He's just blah. He hasn't amounted to anything. He's got nowhere to talk. He's made more money than any of us will ever make, than 99.9% of people in the world will ever make. And it's just, it's sad that, but he's our quarterback. He's our starter. He probably gives us the best chance to win this year, sadly.
At this point, I'd rather Daniel. I'm not even kidding.
I know you're not.
Because I have lost all respect for Sam Bradford after all of this. I have no faith. See, I think Daniel can at least handle pressure. I don't think Sam can. It's done. It's over. He's done. All right, so we have 2 more topics left. So I'm going to try and combine them into one because this show kind of went longer than I expected. So, as always. So we got Paxton Lynch. All this kind of ties together. So Sam Bradford had to report to camp because the Denver Broncos, the only team in the NFL that he could have possibly went to, the Broncos, they trade up in the first round. They take Paxton Lynch. So this ties together because Dallas. This is interesting that Dallas never went and got a quarterback. They coached Carson Wentz at the Senior Bowl. They were reportedly interested in trading up for Paxton Lynch. They had an offer, I believe it was a 2nd round and a 4th round pick to get up into the 1st round and take Paxton Lynch. Instead, Lynch goes to Denver, and there you go. And then also the other topic here, Paxton Lynch has 11.5-inch hands. Very, very big hands. And a reason why that's another topic that was in the article, because Jared Goff only has 9-inch hands. And the thing in the NFL they always say is you have to have at least 9.25-inch hands in order to be a successful NFL starter. Well, 9 inches is not good enough. So there it is. If this wasn't a football chat, oh boy. So just comment on everything I just said, basically. And we'll tie it up into one topic, and we'll get off with final thoughts.
Yeah, I think that Goff's hands might have even been smaller than that. I think that they were around 8 or something like that, or a little bit over.
They were 9 inches.
Were they?
9 inches.
Maybe they were, but yeah. Well, one of the reasons I think that the Eagles moved up to the number 2 spot is because they knew that the Cowboys were very interested in Wentz. And I strongly believe that if the Eagles didn't move up, the Cowboys would have taken Wentz. They either would have stayed at 4 or, they wouldn't have had to have traded up. They probably would have stayed at 4, and they might have been able to get him. So, the Cowboys were in love with Wentz. Like you said, they were his coaches there, during the Senior Bowl. So they got a first-hand look at him. They really loved him. They weren't able to get him. So then the next guy that they wanted was Paxton Lynch. And they, figured that they would be able to get him, somewhere later in the first round. And then they kind of got screwed over because then the Broncos all of a sudden, they jumped up in front of the Cowboys and they got Paxton Lynch. So then the Cowboys were, sitting there without one of the top 3 quarterbacks in the draft. So, really, it was a smart move for the Broncos. Heading into the draft, I thought that the Broncos were the team that was going to land Paxton Lynch because they need a franchise quarterback for the future with just having really, Sanchez as a starting quarterback, heading into the draft. So it made sense for the Broncos to go there and get Lynch. And it was an interesting story with Lynch. He was actually, celebrated his draft party at a bowling alley. and he thought that he might get drafted by the Jets, and he didn't get drafted by the Jets, so he was outside, outside the bowling alley throwing around a football or something, and then all of a sudden, they're running out with their phone saying that he got drafted by the Broncos. So, and then he was, crying like a little baby, taking some lessons from Bradford. But yeah, I think the thing with Lynch is you got a multiple year project with this guy, and really not quite sure if he's going to work out. Some people really love the guy. I'm not a fan of him. I don't think he's going to work out, but we'll see.
Fuck the Cowboys. They still got a great player at number 4. Fuck the Cowboys. If Wentz went to the Cowboys, I would cry. You can't subject such a nice kid to be on the Cowgirls. Ew. And they still made out in this draft. They got Zeke behind that offensive line, and where they could have had Ramsey. At number 4, they had a win-win after the Chargers took Bosa. But as far as them liking Lynch, I mean, obviously they like Wentz, they like Lynch, they like the bigger quarterbacks, like the prototypical size and strength. Lynch has a strong arm, but he's he's a little bit of a project, so it would have made sense for Dallas to get him and sit behind Romo for however long Romo has left in his career. But I'm just hoping the trend continues and Romo gets hurt again this year, so Dallas won't be good, and then we have more of a shot at the division. Lynch, it made sense for Denver to go up and get him. They obviously needed a quarterback. Osweiler leaving, but they did like Osweiler. And Osweiler was also a mammoth of a man, about 6'7", just like Lynch. So they obviously like that build, and doesn't have a great guy to learn behind in Mark Sanchez, but John Elway is the GM there, so he's obviously going to have some sort of influence on Paxton Lynch. And Elway, he's the man. He won 2 Super Bowls. So we'll see. I think it made sense for Denver to get him, and he's in a great situation. I mean, no pressure on him this year. He just won a Super Bowl. I mean, I don't think Sanchez is going to take him to a Super Bowl, but realistically with that defense, I mean, look what they did with a shell of Peyton Manning. So who knows? That defense is that good. But they're in he's on a great team. So we'll see if it works out for Lynch. I think he's not going to be as great as Wentz or Goff. We'll see how it all plays out. I just go back to that Temple game. I love watching that Temple Memphis game when we made them look like shit.
we really did. I'm not a fan of Lynch, but I do think it's a really, really good situation to be in. And you guys are going to laugh at this, but I think Mark Sanchez is plenty good enough for them to repeat. So, yeah, that's how good the defense is. And that's why the situation is so perfect for Lynch. Obviously, you can be a lot more conservative with the play calling if your defense is kind of carrying your weight. But the other thing, too, is, what this offense is all about. Gary Kubiak, play-action bootleg. You need to have that big arm to stretch the field. And obviously Paxton Lynch has the strongest arm of the class. So it's actually a really, really good fit for him. So that's that. Let's do final thoughts, and let's get out of here.
Yeah, I mean, final thoughts. I think that, this is a year, really more than other, where it, pumped up for the preseason. I mean, usually these preseason games, the fans start to leave like after halftime, third quarter. They're exiting the stadium. But this year at the Link, they'll be hanging around for the entire game because they'll probably be. Well, it's gonna be fun, the first preseason game, because we get to boo Sam Bradford for, to start out, and then we get to, see Chase Daniel come in, but then the crowd will erupt when we finally get to, see Carson Wentz's debut in Philadelphia.
It's funny you mention that. It's a quiet time in the off season right now, but we do have a lot to look forward to coming up in just a few short months with training camp and preseason, and just getting a little dose of Wentz in that Eagles green. So that's exciting. I'll throw another final thought out there: is the Philadelphia Phillies. Look at that! Who would have thought Genmar Gomez would lead the league in saves? You told me, if you would have told me before this season started this would happen after a month, I would be like, wait, who's our closer? Wait, what's his name? I mean, they've been. You want to just enjoy a ball game, watch the baseball game. They're fun to watch. They're probably not going to make the playoffs or anything this year, but they're a fun team to watch. Our pitching's been great. Our offense kind of stinks, but we still got some prospects coming up that we'll see this summer, and it's looking good for the future in Philadelphia with the Phillies, the Eagles. Sixers got a big draft lottery coming up next Tuesday, and the Flyers, can build on this year. So it's looking up in Philly sports in the next couple of years. Look out, fellas.
I guess I might as well just plug my next show then, because coming on in a few minutes, we're going to get Kyle Gaffner. We're going to do a Phillies show. That's what we're doing. So, Jeremy, might as well stay on, but I know you got to eat dinner. But, yeah, I mean, I'll just save it for the show, but it's gonna sound like I'm pessimistic, but I don't want to sound like I'm pessimistic, because if you look at like the run differential, we're like minus 27, which is just extraordinary by the fact that we're 18-14 as a team overall. I mean, it's insane to be that many. Because like if you look at up top, the Mets and the Nationals, they're like in the plus 30s, and we're minus 27, so it's bad. But yeah, that'll be for the next few minutes. You guys, if you guys who are watching this, you guys can tune in and watch that. So busy day for me today. I had this, I have the Phillies thing, and I was on the War Room with Anthony Pinto. So make sure you check that out too. Maybe I'll post a link somewhere. We'll see of my appearance there. But for Mike Owens, Jeremy Burton, I'm Adrian. Thank you. We're out. Go Phillies!
That's all there is right now.
Yes, sir. Later.
Later.